Welcome to Real Estate Exposed, helping people in San Diego buy, sell, and refinance their biggest investment, delivering you timely truths, exposing important issues, and helping you get into the right home. Here are your hosts, real estate expert Daniel Beer, top-ranked professional by sales volume at one of San Diego's largest brokerages, and his mortgage partner, Todd Pianin, with over $2 billion in funded loans.
Hey, what's going on? Welcome back. It is a beautiful another Sunday morning here in San Diego. It's Real Estate Exposed with Daniel Beer, the Daniel Beer Group at Keller Williams Realty, and my man Todd Pianin, Home Street Bank. What's going on, buddy?
Not much, my brother. How are you? Great Sunday, beautiful day, hot week.
I'm good because we're coming off another week where you've saved another deal for our team and really appreciate you, man. This is why, most sellers don't realize when they're selling their home that they are in as much need for a lender as a buyer is. Every buyer in the marketplace knows they need a lender.
Yep.
But few sellers realize they need a lender just as much because it's far too easy for the buyer that makes an offer on your property to just show up with the pre-approval letter from, somebody that's sitting at a bank branch and puts together a package and misses something, or is hoping to do a loan, or is just getting into the business and hopes the underwriter will overlook something, or maybe the pre-approval letter's coming from their cousin or their best friend. And that's why, as a seller, you need to have your own lender who cross-qualifies any offer that comes across, so you know you're getting into bed with the right buyer. Thank you, Todd. Thank you, Taisha. Home Street Bank. That's why we trust our clients, too.
I mean, the process there, sorry to cut you off real quick before you do the introduction, but I mean, part of it is, too, is that we're a bank, right? So we can do things a lot faster, quicker, easier. I mean, we got that done in a week while the buyers were in India.
And look, rates are awesome right now, especially with Brexit, just here coming off the heels of Brexit. And we're going to be talking about that here throughout the day. If you need to reach out and talk anything interest rate, purchase, sale related, get in touch with us. Let's have a conversation, you, me, Todd, and we'd love to connect with you directly. The phone number is 800-676-2420. Now, I want to introduce a special guest that we have in studio today. This is just really cool because we have one of San Diego County's biggest, best, fastest growing female entrepreneurs, Jennifer Barnes of Pro Back Office. Jennifer, welcome to the studio here today.
Thank you so much for having me. You're right. Beautiful San Diego day, and what could be better than sitting here with you two guys?
Well, we're just thrilled to have you here. So Jennifer, just for full disclosure, her company, Pro Back Office, runs all of the bookkeeping, accounting, etc. for my company, the Daniel Beer Group. And we want to pick your brain, Jennifer. You have access. You have this unique window into the economy because you see the books for all kinds of industries. You have, how many clients do you have right now?
A little over 150 local San Diego businesses, as well as Phoenix and a couple in Colorado and Northern California.
So these people, they all outsource their accounting function, whether it be anywhere from bookkeeping to high-level CFO, just genuinely having their CFO run through your company. Is that correct? How does that work?
Absolutely. We provide an entire accounting department to growing businesses, everything from the bookkeeping all the way up to the CFO. We're typically on site at our clients, and we become part of their team. Some businesses need our bookkeeper 1 day a week. Some need them 3 days a week. Others want a CFO 1 day a week,
a lot of
1 day a
flexibility.
month. A lot of flexibility, and we really provide a customized, very personal approach to every single business and make sure that they have the right team at every single level.
Which is great because, accounting, just the whole bookkeeping process, accounting process. When we ran Samuel Scott, we had to have our own in-house controller, and it was...
Well, just because you're great at mortgage doesn't mean you're great at accounting. Just because you sell a ton of homes doesn't mean you're great at accounting. Just because you have a great toy store or a great retail shop doesn't mean you're great at accounting and at bookkeeping. And if you don't know your numbers, when's the last time you watched Shark Tank? If you don't know your numbers, you don't know anything.
Or the profit.
But here's what I think is cool, Todd.
Or the profit.
Todd's idol. So here's what I think is cool, though, Todd, is Jennifer, who we have in studio here today from Pro Back Office.
Yes.
Just the window she has into into so many different industries, so many different businesses,
so many different companies,
and there's so much going on in the world right now, from Brexit to the consumer debt bubble, which we have to discuss today,
right,
to the coming market shift in real estate that we're starting to get a lot more clarity on where will it come from, why will it be happening. And so, Jennifer, maybe you can share with us, you just have a window. We only know real estate, right? We know mortgage.
What are you seeing with these small companies? Are you seeing a shift? Are you seeing
growth?
I'm
What are
seeing
you
a lot more outsourcing. So 10 years ago, people weren't outsourcing their accounting functions for the most part. They would hire Betty the bookkeeper to do everything, and then people would experience a lot of fraud or errors, and their financial statements weren't accurate.
Or embezzlement.
Embezzlement.
Yeah.
They would also have one person doing everything, which means you have no segregation of duties, and you've got this person who's completely overwhelmed doing certain tasks and really not doing exactly what they're good at.
Right.
So you put somebody above them at a higher level that is going to give them financials, transparency into their books, some good key performance indicators. How is your company doing? What is your margins? What is your analysis? Really looking at things from a deeper level.
So, but when you look at them, all these companies that you're working with, because you've got one of the fastest growing companies here in San Diego doing what you're doing. Out of all those companies, are you seeing growth? Are you seeing stagnation? Are you seeing these businesses starting to taper off, or because a lot
of growth? We have seen an exponential amount of growth over the last several years with most of our clients. Mm-hmm. And if we get on board and their books are inaccurate and they're not growing, our goal is to help them grow. So within a year of working with us, they're usually going to see some improvement in their books, in their overall margins and their profitability, because we're going to come in and take a big, deep dive and say, okay, what are you spending money on that you shouldn't necessarily be spending money on?
Right.
And how can we make sure that you're being as efficient as possible? And also looking at employee utilization. Some people don't realize that a lot of their billable staff are spending a lot of time on admin activities. And if you look and your billable people are more than 70% not billable, then there's a significant problem.
Is that what you found out with Dan's team?
Well, to pull back the kimono, seriously, they've helped us identify, and this is what's been just so cool, because it's been so easy to work with them. We've had other people that we've tried to do this with around the country, and we've tried it before. It's unbelievably different. They call it outsourced accounting,
right?
But we feel like it's insourced.
Insourced.
They're literally in our office. We're sitting down with them. We're reading reports together. We're diving deep into the business. They've literally helped us identify roughly $25,000 a month that we should be cutting off our books while still being able to grow just the way we want. And it's crazy, and it's really
awesome. So they've saved you over almost $300,000.
It's amazing.
So they paid for themselves and then some, probably.
Well, that's what anything should do. Frankly, if they didn't, then you shouldn't be hiring them.
Right.
Right? If anything you're doing in your business, it all needs to run the business. And when you hire an employee, that's not an expense. That's going to grow the business.
Right.
You need profit per employee.
Right.
Do you know that number? Well, that's what's so cool. If you want to know that number, Jennifer's company will tell you that number. So if you need clarity into yours,
give out Jennifer's information.
This is how you reach Pro Back Office. Okay, you can go to probackoffice.com, or you can call 858-622-1681.
And if it's easy to email us, you can also email us at info@probackoffice.com. I get most of those emails.
We're going to come back and talk about, in the second segment here, coming back out of the break, we're going to be talking about Brexit, okay? The UK is leaving the EU, massive turmoil in the international markets, including here at home. There's a coming real estate shift that we've been talking about for, 2 months or so ahead of anyone else.
More than 2 months.
Right? Before anyone else has even whispered about it, we've been talking about it. Now we're seeing more clarity into where it's going to come from, why, and consumer debt is at the head of it. You can't miss the information being shared with you today. You're listening to Real Estate Exposed, News Radio 600 KOGO, iHeartRadio. So the world looks different with the UK now out of Europe.
Well, they're not out of Europe.
If you ask them, they are.
They're not out of Europe. It's going to take 2 years for them to unwind out of the EU. So let's not throw fire on the stove.
Here's what's happening, though. Let's dive a little bit deep into, or at least scratch the surface of, I should say, of what's going on with Brexit. Why is it a big deal for us?
Well, what you can say, though, is that the pound on Friday hit a 30-year low.
30-year low. And by the way, you're listening to Real Estate Exposed right here on News Radio 600 KOGO. Daniel Beer just like the drink. Todd Pianin, Home Street Bank. A 30-year low, Todd.
30-year low. And so
that's not just a hiccup.
Okay, so let's also talk about the other huge thing about Brexit. 72 million people came out and voted for it.
Wow.
Okay, do you realize that was more people than voted for the prime minister? That's the biggest turnout they've ever had in voting. And I've called it. I know you don't like to say it, but I also think that for our presidential election, you're going to see massive turnouts too. This is where we're headed. This is where people are just fed up.
Well, to frame how huge this is, they are a union. It is the European Union. Just like here in America, we had a union.
Right.
And at one point in our history, there was a portion of our country who wanted to secede and remove themselves from the union.
It's called the Civil War.
Right,
yes.
and that's exactly what happened.
Yes.
So thank God that's not happening here. There's not going to be any bloodshed. But I'm just trying to highlight that this isn't just some interesting little news clip.
They're talking about France may leave, Germany may leave.
This is huge.
This could be a waterfall effect.
Now, let's talk about why the markets had such a volatile reaction, because everything from the Asian markets through Europe to the United States, the Dow, the NASDAQ, there was massive volatility all throughout the world. There still continues to be. And the reason why, just to try to highlight this for you, is it's important that we understand that in 2014, direct investment into the EU, into the European Union by Americans.
Yes.
Okay, so totaled about 1.8 trillion euros. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of our money invested in the European Union system.
Right.
So when a country like England or the UK as a whole removes themselves from that system, that creates volatility, that creates question marks, that disrupts a whole huge chunk of change that the United States has invested in that economic system. Therefore, that's why you're seeing what we have.
It also devalues it.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, you're seeing basically you're going to probably see a recession in Europe. I don't know if you agree with that, but I see that. I see a short-term.
I think there has to be, just because investment's going to pull out from around the world, right?
Right. So I see that. I also see, a lot of things that are going to happen for us, in the short term. I think that you're going to see a huge change in the presidential talking points, and you've already heard some of them come out and say, and you're going to see a huge change there. You're also seeing interest rates drop dramatically because people, when there's uncertainty in the marketplace, which is what's happened with Brexit, it's caused a flight to quality. So everybody's flown into the 10-year bond. I mean, we saw when we opened up Friday morning, we opened up at 1.52. I mean, we haven't seen those numbers. That was the 52-week low.
Isn't
for the
that
year.
Since like 2012 the lowest that we've been?
No, it's 52-week low. We opened at the 52-week low for the year.
For this year. Got it.
So, it's a flight to quality, uncertainty. Do a lot of people feel like this is going to, work itself out? Yes. I mean, people are calling for like a 25% crash in the stock market. No 25% crash in the stock market, but the British Prime Minister did resign. That was a big deal.
Huge.
That's a huge deal. I think that if you're out, in the real estate game right now, you should be thinking about, this is definitely a time to buy. It's also definitely a good time to sell.
Well, and that's interest rate related, right?
100% interest rate related. We're gonna have a massive, probably 3-month push in that marketplace that we're gonna see. You and I are gonna see on the micro level, because people can buy more because interest rates are lower, that kind of stuff.
Well, affordability is up.
Yeah,
but that's interest rate driven.
Correct.
Because even as we've had appreciation since the correction from the last market crash, we've had interest rates drop to such a low level, and now Brexit has further precipitated that into even lower numbers, right? Where these interest rates are continuing to even get better, which keeps affordability at a great place, despite the fact that we as a nation, and this is something you have to understand, because we are feeling the beginnings of a market shift. Okay, so we understand there seems to be contradicting factors we're discussing here, but it's a convoluted system. But please understand,
we're talking micro and macro. We're talking micro
and macro effects. Correct. But because you have to understand that the U.S. average home price, or median home price, is at its highest ever.
San Diego, the UT just published $490,000.
It's at its highest ever.
Right.
You know, we're 7+ years into this market correction.
Correct.
Into this part of the cycle, and there's always been natural cycles. There will always be up cycles, down cycles in the past, in the future, and we've been talking about the very beginnings of a market shift that we're sensing, where we're starting to see longer days on market, price reductions, et cetera, especially starting in that kind of anywhere in our local market, kind of up and around the 15 corridor, especially at a luxury price point. And that's always where it starts and then trickles down to the rest of the market here locally in San Diego. We're seeing the beginnings of it, but we couldn't give you any great indication as to why or where it was coming from or you know, what beyond just the fact that we have natural market cycles? Why else? What's going to push it forward?
Right.
Now we're getting a big catalyst here, a potential catalyst through Brexit.
Huge.
But can we talk about consumer debt?
Wow. You told me that number today. I was almost completely shocked. Before we talk about consumer debt, though, I want you to give me some props, though, because I think I will be right. There'll be no more interest rate hikes this year.
I don't think there can be any more this year.
So
I don't think there can be. And in fact,
Jen, you would agree with that? Interest rate hikes this year?
I don't think so.
I think
it depends on what happens with the election. So
I don't see how it can happen. In fact, here's something else that's happened since Brexit is that, you know, they always have probability of recessions happening or of rates changing, et cetera. And this happens, you know, although the Wall Street basically puts probability on all of it.
Right.
Well, the probability of a local recession since Brexit, the Wall Street has jumped that up to 50%, a 50% probability. That's what, like, a past client of mine is a bond trader.
Right.
He's on top of those numbers at all times.
Right.
50% probability now since Brexit. That's how significant it is. But again, you have to realize
everybody thought Brexit was not going to happen.
1.8 trillion euros of our money, okay, which translates to, I don't know what, somewhere in the $2 billion range, roughly.
Right.
Of our money.
Right.
Is being shooken up. There's now question marks around it. See, picture this. We've made strategic investments into the UK, often because they're just great investments in and of themselves, and we want to be invested there. But often,
they're also our partners, though.
Yes, but there's a lot of that money that has gone into investment into that region in order to gain access to the trade lines they have through the rest of Europe.
Correct.
Now those trade lines have been cut. Or they're going to be cut here as they unravel themselves from the EU over the next 2 years. So that's where a lot of this also comes from. And going back here to consumer debt.
Talk about that, Dan, because that number is astronomical. I didn't even realize this number was so high.
So first off, consumer debt is now upwards of $3 trillion with credit card debt at $1 trillion of that. We have not ever.
I'll take responsibility for $1 trillion.
We have not ever had. I mean, Jennifer, if you could do the books, you guys do the books for all these companies. If you could do the books for the American public, you would look at them and then see $1 trillion of credit card debt on their books. You would find out, Jennifer, that in this year, in the first quarter, the American public added $71 billion of credit card debt to their balance sheet, while only paying down $26.8 billion. The rate of growth of our mounting debt has hit 7% when it's been averaging only 4% a year.
Well, is that going to affect the economy? And that, you know, people are predicting 2019 or 2020 there's going to be a crash, you know, somewhat of a recession. I mean, is that?
I'm telling you, more than ever, you have to get with your professionals. Call us. The number's 800-676-2420. Look, for some of you, you should be buying, but for others, you should be selling. My own brother, he just purchased a home. I'm happy he did. He locked in a great rate. It's going to be good for him in the long term. But depending on your time frame, you need to understand what's going on with the current market cycle. You're listening to Real Estate Exposed. The number's 800-676-2420. You're with Daniel Beer and Todd Pianin. Coming up out of the break, we're going to be discussing Jennifer Barnes' new book. You're not going to want to miss it. It's awesome. Hey, we're back with you. It's our third segment here of Real Estate Exposed. News Radio 600 KOGO. Todd Pianin of Home Street Bank, our esteemed host.
Mikey, you pick some weird stuff sometimes to bring us out of the break.
Well, I'm Daniel Beer, the Daniel Beer Group over at KW, and we have Jennifer Barnes in studio. Jennifer
Hello.
Barnes
I can't wait to hear this discussion.
So we were in a meeting, and Jennifer started to tell the group about this book that she has, and it just captivated the room. This thing is awesome. It's racy. It's sexy. It's scary. It's a lot of different things. We have Jennifer here. It's a book called From Their Greed to Their Foreclosure. And it's available on Amazon, Kindle, Audible, etc. You name it, it's there. Jennifer, take us through the premise of the book, because it's very much, while it is fiction, it's loosely based on a true story. On truth, right? Of what we saw in the mayhem of the real estate.
So this is, I thought this was a fiction book.
It's fiction. We had to change the names, obviously.
To protect the people,
I'd have some people angry with me.
Well, and it's
I was in the book, I guess.
It's from the mayhem of the mortgage industry back in the 04-05 market. So this will be fun. Jennifer, take us through it. How do you go ahead and introduce us to what the book covers and how you came about wanting to write it? Where do these stories come from?
Sure, and it's actually From Their Greed to Your Foreclosure, and it's really a look at some of what mortgage brokers did and some of the predatory lending practices, and they kind of took advantage of the loose lending and basically tried to charge as much as they possibly could on the back end of the loan, and then would hire inexperienced people such as strippers to go and sell loans. And I'm not kidding when I say, I worked for one of the largest privately held mortgage companies in San Diego from the years of 2004 to 2007. And at one point, there was too many men in the office. So our CEO and VP of sales went to numerous strip clubs and found strippers and turned them into loan officers.
Wow.
And the women would put their beautiful faces on these
email
signatures.
This is a local company in town that did this.
This was a local company.
They did go bankrupt, I believe, in 2010.
Are you free to share their name now that they don't exist? You can say no.
You don't have to.
Let's keep that quiet. If you go to my LinkedIn profile, you can see where I used to work. But I won't say it out loud.
Was it mostly subprime lending they were doing, or was it a paper kind of
all across the board? And then at one point they became a warehouse, a warehouse line of credit bank, and actually serviced the loans. At one point, we were doing about $20 million a year in revenue, as well as having a warehouse line of credit.
So you guys are pulling in $20 million a year in revenue.
Limos and parties and penthouses. And, the CEO at one point went to Canada. I'll never forget the story. And he wanted to have 2 cases of Penta water shipped to Canada because he had no sense of, I should save some money and be reasonable here. Right. I have so much money flowing out of my ears that, hey, let's just ship Penta water to Canada. Can't you go to a darn geyser and get some water out of there? I mean, really?
Right.
You're going to spend that much money?
How about the faucet?
Or the faucet, God forbid.
Right.
But, it was just kind of what some brokers did. I'm not saying all of them, certainly. I mean,
it was a crazy world. I mean, I remember...
We never thought it was going to stop. I remember the money was just flowing.
I remember 25-year-old kids driving around in their Bentleys and in their Rolls Royces and just in their Lambos, and just it was a really crazy world. So you watched The Big Short, did you?
I did.
How much of that did it resonated with you as far as the lifestyle that these guys were living?
I liked the mortgage conference, where it was very indicative of the type of people that were some of the people that were in that industry at the time, and those were some of the conferences that our people were attending. Did
you read or listen to the NPR Planet Money episode where they did about what happened?
I did not.
So they took you from real life. So they took you from the guy who got the mortgage all the way to the MBS trader on Wall Street. Okay. And so they took you through each process. So like the funniest part of the whole story was the beginning. They go to this guy who's a plumber and they go, so you got a mortgage from a mortgage guy.
Made $40,000 a year and bought an $800,000 house.
100%. He said, so he goes, so let me ask you, it was a $500,000. He took out a $500,000 mortgage. They gave him $300,000. They asked him straight up, they go, so would your brother lend you money? He said, absolutely not. Would your mom lend you money? Absolutely not. He goes, how come how much do you make a year? He goes, $36,000 a year. How can you afford a $500,000 mortgage? But they take you through the whole process. And so it was just and they go to the mortgage brokers who were at the strip clubs doing all kinds of crazy stuff, which I'm assuming that was what your book probably goes into some raunchy detail, maybe.
Pretty interesting details. It's a good book, and I was the director of finance of this company, and I was only 26 years old, so I'm a little naive at the time. I'm back in my little bean counting office with my team of bean counters, and I don't think I really realized what was going on until several years later. But luckily, I had all the original emails from Aegis and Paulfi and Countrywide of them going under and us losing millions of dollars of our pipeline overnight.
Right.
And the CEO went to the racetrack and said, "We can't make payroll. I'm going to bet this last $5,000 on the racetrack and make sure that we made payroll." And it was just some really risky, crazy business like that.
Did he make payroll with it?
Once he did. The second time he did it, he did not. But what I had done is, I was so frustrated that they wouldn't listen to me on saving money. Hey, let's take 10% of your profits, put it in the bank. You know, you need to save up for a rainy day.
Well, you didn't even need net worth back then, right? You could use, like, to get your warehouse line, you could say the chair was worth $10,000, right? For tangible net worth. I mean, now they don't do that. I mean, there's a change. And
they became a little smarter.
But these guys are all, I mean, some of these people were quite literally, who were making $1 million a year, et cetera. They blew every penny of it. They don't have a cent of it.
Right.
Yep.
And some of them are, working a $35,000 job now.
Right.
Which is fine. I'm not, no comment. We're all, but you don't typically aim to go from $1 million a year to 35.
Right.
It was a goofy world, man. It was just a crazy, crazy, goofy world. In the book, From Their Greed to Your Foreclosure, Jennifer Barnes, look this up. It's on
Audible.
Amazon, eKindle, Audible, pretty much every ebook site. I'm gonna get it in a draft paperback soon.
I mean, this is fun.
I'm gonna have to listen to this on Audible because it's got to be awesome. I mean, this is like when we had Josh Altman on. You know who Josh Altman is from $1 Million Listing?
Sounds familiar.
Los Angeles.
Yep.
He's a realtor in LA. He's a top producing realtor in LA. We had him on. He phoned in, and he was in the mortgage business before he got into the real estate business. And he talked about the crazy times of the mortgage world, right, where he was making all kinds of money, and then one day it all disappeared, and he went broke, right? And so now he's, I think he's in the top. What was he in LA County?
He's a top 5 guy in the county.
Right.
I'm not sure what he is exactly, but big producer now.
Well, this guy lost his limo and his Ferrari and his Hummer and his truck.
Josh lost all that too.
He lost at least a half a dozen rental properties and all of his cars and his Rolex collection, and
So go look up this. Go look this thing up. You're gonna hear it from someone who was right in the thick of it. Just
seeing
watching
it
happen all around
from the
her.
inside, seeing it from the financial side,
and the accounting side,
And you are definitely listening to Real Estate Exposed, right? That's what the show's all about. You are with Daniel Beer, Todd Pianin. You're right here on KOGO News Radio 600 KOGO. This is Real Estate Exposed. We're going to be back with you. If you need to connect with us, give us a shout. 800-676-2420. That's 800-676-2420. Crazy times, in mortgage and in real estate. What we were talking about here in this last segment, going, back in the old market, that 2003, 4, 5 crazy mortgage bubble we had in that environment, just bananas. We have Jennifer Barnes in studio today talking about her book, From Their Greed to Your Foreclosure.
So Jennifer, tell whose point of view is this through? Is this through the mortgage broker's point of view? Is this?
It's from my point of view, and my name has been changed in the book to Madison Stevens.
Ooh.
I met the founder of this mortgage company.
We're here with Madison Stevens.
We're here with Madison Stevens today.
In the studio.
You should have told us that before we started recording.
So
you could have just called me Maddie.
Yeah. So okay. So is the book so it's through your point of view, like what happened and how you were treated through the whole process and crisis? I mean.
Yeah, so I meet Hayden at the University of Arizona where I'm going to school, and I'm about to graduate.
Hayden's real name is John.
Bill.
Okay.
That's all I'll say.
Okay.
I meet Hayden in college, and he's not in college at the time. He's a few years older than I am. And I meet him at a seminar on how to sell real estate and loans and how to become a loan officer. And I thought, well, rather than waitressing at Chili's, I want to go sell loans. And so that's kind of how the book starts. And I meet him at the seminar, and we hit it off instantly. And he decides to take me out on a date. We could talk about the mortgage industry and real estate.
A mortgage date.
A mortgage date.
So it was a date. It was a date.
It was a date.
Okay.
It was a date.
Okay.
Yep.
Now you're married. Is this the same guy?
No. I've been married to the same guy. We've been together for 8 years, and
did he know Hayden?
He did know Hayden.
Okay.
All right. So what happened?
Sorry.
And actually, what's interesting is later on in life, when I left the mortgage company, I continued consulting for Hayden for many years after that, and he had racked up quite a bit of money that he owed me. And when we bought our house a few years ago, the deal was he would do my loan for free, and we just wash off the debt. So it was a pretty good deal because I got a really nice place over in University City, and I didn't have to pay any points or any fees to get the loan done.
Right.
Kind of paid me back after all the years I consulted for him.
That was nice. But so Hayden's still in the mortgage business today.
He is. He
Got
is.
it.
So if someone goes to Amazon, Kindle, Audible, and picks up the book From Their Greed to Your Foreclosure, they're going to be hearing this from your point of view, watching this all unfold.
Yep.
And so is it, what is it? Is it a comedy? Is it a tragedy? What take us through the basic.
Racy?
It's very racy. I would say it's a bit of 50 Shades of Grey meets Boiler Room meets Wolf of Wall Street, told from my point of view, from the inside on the accounting finance world, looking out and looking at all the loan officers and all the money that's being thrown around. And, I had a limo at my disposal for about 3 years. We had a limo driver who also did some of the IT for the company.
Of course you did.
Of course he did. And, we could take it out as often as we wanted. It was a pretty fun time. But, you saw what that did to America because, you're charging 3-4 points on the back end on all these loans and then not thinking too far ahead where, hey, these loans, these interest rates are going to go up. You're in the 3, 5, 7-year arms. Right. And once the interest rates go up and you've got all these points that you'd charge on the back end, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, well, now your home is not worth what you can sell it for.
Well, it's for that very reason that when Todd and I are discussing this coming market shift that we do see the early signs for, we don't at all think that it's going to be anything beyond just a normal run-of-the-mill mild downturn. It's not going to be anything like what we came out of in this last market because that market was built on a false lending environment. It was built on bad loans.
Toothpicks.
Right.
Built on toothpicks.
And as Todd famously
the banks
likes
let
to
you get
say,
away with.
Yes.
We have the best vintage of buyers. Very elegant word
Yes.
Todd likes to use. But everybody that's done a loan since 2008, 2009 can truly afford it, can just really, their debt-to-equity ratios.
Debt-to-income
ratio. Or debt-to-income ratios really do match, or exceed, really, what they need
in order to... much tighter process.
Responsibly own what they own.
And they actually have to put money down, except we found out about a program a credit union's doing in town, 100% financing right now.
Wow.
But, so that's interesting you bring that up because there is some loosening of lending practices right now, but I think that the loosening that's happening is actually quite positive in that they're getting money into the hands of people that should have loans and need loans instead of only being able to get money into the hands of people that don't quite need them as much. But this is on a global level.
You and I will debate. We could debate on this all day long. I mean, I just got back from our managers retreat up in Suncadia that
Sure.
we're hosted, and I sat down with our head of product development. And he basically said that the jumbo market, securitization market, they've just announced is completely dead. There's no buying of jumbo securities. So all these, so the thing that scares me, well, he says a good sign, but I'm finally calling it dead. He says that probably means the markets will start opening up again. But what scares me is we're seeing these loosening of guidelines, and you're seeing a lot of these hedge funds and REITs and stuff like that do some crazy stuff, low down payments, high dollar figure.
Filling a need.
Right. But if the securitization market doesn't come back, we're going to run out of money.
Well, what's interesting too is, Jennifer, you're mentioning all these loans that were, seemingly 1% up front, but really it was negative amortization. You were just getting big time overloaded on the back end.
They're getting huge rebates.
But what's happening is a lot of people that got in trouble and that were able to avoid foreclosing or able to avoid short selling, they went into these loan mods, right? They had loan modifications. And so here's something that I think not even a lot of real estate practitioners know a lot about. I don't know a lot about. And Todd, so I'd love to pick your brain here. These loan mods,
yes,
they're not modified permanently and forever.
No.
they actually reset as well.
There's like a 5-year fix.
So
correct.
that is there's a wave
Potential
of that
coming too.
which you
Correct.
can pile on to what we were discussing earlier, right? With all of the global market turmoil with Brexit, everything that's ensuing from there, the consumer debt bubble that we're seeing, and this is kind of that final ingredient that I think finally pushes us into a market that eventually does go into a downturn and cycles down for some time.
But
Nothing crazy, nothing dramatic.
No 20, 30, 40, 50%.
No, my prediction is we're going to see anywhere from 3 to 10%.
Right.
10% probably on higher end properties, 3% the closer you get to the coast, the closer you get a median price point. But Todd, take us through that just for a quick second here as we have less than a minute to go. These loan mods reset, then what? These guys' payments start rising again?
Rising again, but sometimes you can get them to remodify it. Sometimes you can refi out of it. Guidelines look at loan modifications as a negative.
The key word, though, is you're saying sometimes. And what happens is, this is just how people are, right? That loan mod happens, their payment goes down,
Right.
but then all of a sudden they're spending those extra dollars on something
else,
They have
correct.
a car payment they otherwise might not have, or some other thing.
Right.
Or maybe that actually leads us into why we have so much consumer debt.
Right.
It'll be interesting to see that play out. Jennifer, thanks so much for being in studio with
Thanks
us
for having
today.
me.
It was awesome.
You were a great guest.
You're listening to Real Estate Exposed. If you want to connect with Daniel Beer just like the drink, Daniel Beer Group, or Todd Pian and Home Street Bank, the number's 800-676-2420, 800-676-2420. We'd love talking real estate with you, and it was fun again.
Home Street Bank, a member of the FDIC, equal housing lender, MLS ID number 304014. Have a great Sunday. See you next week.